Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out. Christ is Lord.
Hello and welcome in to another episode of Offensively Accurate. Looks like the chat is having some issues, so we will fix that here in a second, but welcome in. I am your host, Atlas Thug. You are listening to another episode of Offensively Accurate. You can read the title. It says Civil War II. And that is because we have, at the same time, two simultaneous insane Democrat issues going on. And so there's going to be two main stories tonight that we're going to cover. One is going to get a more in-depth look tomorrow. I have already scripted a video for that, and we'll explore at greater detail tomorrow. But we're going to explore some of that tonight. The two big stories are, one, the fact that Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson basically is putting forward that the right wants a rematch of the Civil War. And this goes in line with the fact that he has issued, I believe, several executive orders that basically are blocking off areas that ICE is able to do what they need to do. So essentially making ICE-free zones all throughout of Chicago. And what is this causing? Well, this is causing obvious tensions to rise. You know, we even have Matt Walsh calling him out for treason, and I would actually agree with that. You have a Gavin Newsom saying states shouldn't be invading each other. And that is in response to the fact that I believe it is the Texas governor, forgive me, I'm forgetting his name, has already openly said publicly that here are my Texas National Guard, use them across the nation wherever you need. And that seems to be what we are boiling up against, is that the tensions are reaching a point that it's not looking good where it's going at all. Tensions are looking awful. And the conclusion of these tensions will be that if Chicago does not get its stuff under control, more than likely, either other forces from around the state and in similar cities, or more likely, a nearby state, whether it's going to be Indiana, or maybe they're going to send them from Texas, maybe they'll come from California, another state's National Guard is going to show up, and they're basically going to say, hey, we are going to operate this way. And what does that happen? And that leads to what? Civil war, civil conflict. It's states under the federal umbrella coming in and basically saying, hey, you're not going to do this. And this is going to threaten what a state is able to do versus the union. So it's not looking good. So that kind of gives a short summary of what's going on there. But yes, the Chicago mayor is indeed a retard. The second story, and one that I find to be a lot more revealing in terms of the nature of what a typical Democrat is the story of Jay Jones. And the story of Jay Jones is actually probably going to fall a little bit under the wayside. This is Brandon Johnson news, probably will overtake it, I would imagine. But Jay Jones had a text message exchange revealed and was published where he basically calls for violence repeatedly. And it's not a call for violence in terms of a public cry for it. It was a private text message string that, if you look deep enough into it, it turns out that he is, in fact, not even intentionally messaging the person he messaged. He actually says, sorry, this was for Mark, but continues. But in this text message exchange, it basically reveals that, one, he has a strong disdain for some of his colleagues, if you will, on the other side of the aisle. But he basically got mad that when a 90-year-old colleague of his, a Democrat, Joe Johnson, had passed away, he took issue with the fact that of how the Republicans were eulogizing him. And he begins to make some of these comments clear through this text message exchange. Lord, forgive me, I can't talk. And as he's making these points and these comments clear, he begins to drop the mask. And we get to what we get today, which is this insane text message exchange. And we're going to take a bit of a look into it. So with that, let's get the chat cleaned up. I have no idea what's going on with it, to be quite honest with you. So I'm going to figure that out here in a second. But those are kind of the two main stories. We have some smaller one-offs. We have another father ripping a school board for a secret sex club, which again, this tracks. This is this is America. This is what America is anymore. We also have the fact that Jake Auchincloss, or Auchincloss, I think is how you pronounce his name, basically held like a Q&A session and got berated endlessly for his support for Israel. And I would imagine a lot of those constituents were probably just more so left-leaning, but it was funny to watch him squirm. So we have a video there as well. I do want to say, while it's here in the chat, thank you very much for that was close. He sent 5 gifted. I appreciate that very much. Looks like Smoke and Beers got 1, the Agile Walrus got 1, Bull got 1, Real Rain got 1, and Psalm 19:1 got 1. So thank you very much for that. I appreciate it greatly. And I do appreciate all of your guys' support, your comments, the outreach. I appreciate it greatly. So I do apologize if I don't respond to things immediately. I understand I'm busy and I have a daughter who's not even a year old too. So it gets tough sometimes. But let's fix this chat. I don't know what is going on with it right now. So let me hold off if you have something crazy to say. Let me fix this. Let me fix this. All right. You know what? We're not going to fix it today because I don't even know where to start to actually fix that. So 2 of every chat's coming in. I'm not sure. I didn't change anything from the last time I went live, so I have no idea what that would be. So there's 2 of everybody in chat. So there's 2 of you. So in fact, we don't have 30 people watching. We have about 70. So take that for what you will. I apologize for that. And today's not going to be a longer episode anyway, so it'll be a bit shorter. And amidst all of that actually is a bigger story that I'm not going to cover here, but definitely pay attention to. I didn't have enough time to be able to cover it. Just a lot of things happening at once. But this goes in line with the TikTok censorship and the fact that there is an insane amount of Israeli propaganda being pushed to the extreme. Somebody said they like the skinhead look. That's funny. Somebody would say this isn't actually full-blown skinhead, if you will. But in the same line of Larry Ellison buying TikTok, the ongoing acquisition of TikTok to a extremely pro-Israel individual, we have the fact that David Ellison, who is the son of Larry Ellison, bought the Free Press and installed the founder, Barry Weiss, as the editor-in-chief of CBS News. And what's funny is that obviously had some strong reactions to it as well. But I would say to that too, definitely pay attention to that story because again, we're getting a lot of this in line and all in a row too. And it's kind of, would I say terrifying? No, but I would say it's happening very, very quickly. And whenever you see something happening that quickly, it's very easy to do something. It's very hard to pull back some of these measures. It's very hard to repeal. It's very hard to pull back. You know, you can't put it back can't put the toothpaste back in the toothpaste tube, if you will. And so that's a story to pay attention to as well. Also, you have some Israeli drone footage also was going around, making the rounds, if you will, going viral a little bit. And it basically shows Gaza is non-existent. And the caption that made it viral, which I thought was pretty good, was, "Am I to believe Hamas was in every single one of these houses?" And it basically looks like a flattened desert. It does not look good by any means. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll go with the Brandon Johnson story to start off with. So the video basically is him demanding a rematch, or matter of factly saying or mouthing the words that a rematch is what the right wants. This is from Colin Rugg, and he does pretty well. He's kind of a neutral guy to go to on a lot of these stories. But he writes, Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson says the right wants a rematch of the Civil War because ICE is deporting illegal immigrants. A couple of years ago, I said very candidly that the right wing in this country wants a rematch of the Civil War. So these are some of his fuller statements. It's about 2 minutes long, but we're taking a listen to this because these are the statements that go along with everything else happening that has basically led us to this position here. Now, if you followed Tim Pool, you've known that civil war is not a novel concept by any means. Civil war has been on the tip of people's tongues for quite a long time. Now we are getting a bit more of that coming from the politicians and less so from the podcast crew. So let's take a listen to this.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
I know you're going to talk about the Texas Guard, Illinois Guard, but can you give us a little bit about what your next steps could be to fight that?
Well, look, our corporate counsel has been in constant communication with our Attorney General for several months now. And I just wanted to offer this up. A couple of years ago, I said very candidly that the right wing in this country wants a rematch of the Civil War. I want that to sit in right now, because the President of the United States of America has declared war on the people of Chicago and people across America.
That's right.
He's more interested in giving billions of dollars to other nations, while farmers in urban cities around this country are literally being destabilized. And so whether it's the legal system, whether it's through executive order, or whether it's through the brave women and men who are serving as rapid responders. We literally have people who are volunteering in this city, on the southwest side, the northwest side, all over this city, to make sure that we're protecting children from being separated from their families. And we're talking about volunteers who are literally putting themselves at risk of being shot and killed by the federal government. And so whether it's the legal system, whether it's our continuous struggle for liberation through organizing, and whether it's through executive action, or whether it's through law, it would be nice if we actually had lawmakers in Washington that would actually hold this president accountable. And if they won't do it, then the city of Chicago will, using every single tool that's available to us.
And so there you have it. This is kind of a strong push against what is happening federally. And you would ask the question, how did we get here? Right? And so I think that there's a very long-winded answer that you would give to that. But quite frankly, the shorter answer and the more succinct one, and the one that matters, is the one that would be the best explainer, the one that would make the most sense, the one that would give people the easiest bite of information so they could understand and at least parse what is happening in the world around them to make sense of what this is. And we highlighted a Harrison Smith video, I believe it was last stream, that I thought did a pretty good job of explaining with an analogy of exactly why these tensions are blowing up. Yeah, the one word juice, it's funny. And let's explain it by the way that the average person kind of breaks this information down. And so the average person basically goes around, and we'll compare it to the Epstein files. The average person already in this normie space knows things like, Epstein didn't kill himself. They are some level of aware of just how deeply perverted and corrupt our entire system is. And that's seemingly okay as long as it stays over there. As long as it stays over in Washington, D.C., I can still afford my gas. I can afford, I can send my kids to school. Like, at least if I can get by, it's like, I'm not happy about it, but whatever. I'm not going to be convicted to go march on Wall Street. But that's not what's happening. It's the fact that this is going on while people can't afford their groceries. This is going on while people are having to figure out secondary and third solutions because they're no longer willing to put their kids in public school. And there's a myriad of reasons for that, from just racialized to just endangerment to the transgender aspect. There's a myriad of reasons for that. And the wild part that connects it all is, again, you have what was supposed to be the golden age. So this energy's been building and building and building. And Donald Trump comes along and he harnesses on this energy. Now, people didn't like it at first, right? You had a lot of the typical Republican and conservative, the Christian crowd was opposed to it because they didn't like his language. He was too strong. But that's not what mattered. What mattered was the fact that it was actionable. What mattered was he was clearly a threat to the system just by the way that they had reacted to him. But what ends up happening is he kind of has a disappointing first term, but here we come to the second term. So Trump, being this figure, being seen as this overall just kind of Molotov cocktail being thrown into the window of a building that previously thought was unable to be reached to get inside. And so they're going to vote for that. The only issue is on the second time around, after being told repeatedly this won't be like the first time around, he's learned from these mistakes. We have a clear mandate from God. We have all these things going on. And I've mentioned this multiple times. We're building the A team. This isn't even the B team. This is like a dream team. We're getting free reign from all these picks. They're floating how we may even do like emergency appointments just to get around a lot of these things. And we don't get the Epstein files. We get, in fact, a slap in the face we get from Trump. Are you seriously still talking about the Epstein files? And basically throwing his entire base under the bus, and everyone understands that story. But the point being in there is even normies have been open and are aware to the fact that, okay, there's some level of corruption of the government. Trump is supposed to be this thing that takes away some of that, drains the swamp. That's probably maybe a better way to explain that. And he doesn't. And we get even more kind of nonsensical stuff as it pertains to Epstein, more nonsensical stuff as it pertains to war with Iran, more nonsensical stuff as it pertains to Israel, more nonsensical stuff as it pertains to college campuses. And so what do people see? They see more of the same. And now trust is gone. Credibility is gone. The MAGA base is having an all-out war with itself. And what do you get from that? Is, well, people now are seeing that there may never be a day that comes that justice will be served. But at the end of the road of over periods of time, over and over and over again, of people witnessing damage being done, crimes being committed rather, and at the highest levels of office, in public, in people's faces. And like Harrison Smith said, what are the consequences? Oh, looky here. Actually, as it turns out, instead of getting a 4% kickback on your lunch breaks, we're only going to give you a 2% kickback. And it's like, hold on. That punishment in no way, shape, or form is anywhere close to meeting the violation of which they committed. Like, we need a lot more here. And naturally, at the end of that road of over and over and over and over and over again of people going, here's the crime, here's the punishment doesn't match the crime, it was very, very weak. At the end of that road, people will take into their own hands what they believe to be justice. And this is the road we don't want to be on. But that is the road of civil war. It is the road of two-tier systems of justice. It is the road of rules for thee, not for me. It is the road of, and all of that fits in there. It's not sustainable. And what are we getting from Brandon Johnson now? Brandon Johnson is doubling, tripling, quadrupling down. He's basically making a statement here to say, no, I oppose the federal government. No, I oppose deportations. No, I oppose every aspect of justice and law. And who are you to stop me? And then he highlights it and he attaches and couples all of that with Civil War talk. Now putting pressure back on the administration, to which he knows will be effective because for whatever reason, the Trump administration is still beholden to people like the New York Times. And so it's not a good path that we're on. It is setting itself up for, once again, the Trump administration. It is like here on a silver platter, the Trump administration can go and make an example of Brandon Johnson. Will they? I'm of the belief that I don't really know. I have no idea. We need them to make an example out of Brandon Johnson. But this is where the tensions are naturally going to go. And this is actually attached with the other story as it pertains to Jay Jones, because the overall thing with the left is that their cause is so righteous, there is no wrong that they could commit that would take away from it. It doesn't matter what evil thing one of their guys could do. It matters that it's one of their guys and they're on the right side of history. And so the response from a lot of this has just been astounding, for one. So the Brandon Johnson one largely is just showing that they're willing to make it actionable. And it's almost as if it's a challenge to the Trump administration. And I think it would be a pity for the Trump administration to not give them what they want. Give Brandon Johnson what he wants. March in there, clean up that town, and depose him. And somebody had mentioned it earlier. Yes, I believe Brandon Johnson's approval rating is single digit for sure, but it's like 6%. A 6% approval rating. And I think that would be all the more telling is if the Trump administration would be unwilling to depose a 6% approval rating Democrat who is clearly and illegally preventing the federal government from doing what it needs to do. I think not only does he need deposed and removed from power, he needs charged and he needs to go to prison for it. And I would also say the same thing for Jay Jones. So that's kind of a little snippet in there into Brandon Johnson. We'll explore it a little bit more, just get some more of the reactions here. I actually have the, what's it called? The trending tab of Brandon Johnson actually pulled up here so we can see some of the fresh stuff coming in from X. And there's been a lot of these statements here from him. So I'll put it back on screen here. Let me get rid of this actually. And so it's, here we have it trending, but the big thing is not letting ICE do what it needs to do. And so at the end of the day, now what do you have? You have the fact that a mayor of a city in the middle of America is defending foreigners who are invading this country. I mean, Brandon Johnson has quite frankly made himself an enemy of the people. And truth be told, maybe he's doing it because he's getting paid for it. I'm telling you, I don't find Mayor Brandon Johnson to be somebody who possesses anything beyond a 65 IQ. I'd give him 70 on a good day. So I don't believe this is some grand plan that he is going to align with. So maybe this is just all organically evolving from pure retardation. I'm more of the belief that they just think he's dumb enough to go along with it. And so there's probably somebody putting things in front of him to guide him along this path. But here we have Gavin Newsom. And what does he write? Let me make it a bit bigger so people can see this. States cannot invade one another. This is so simple, so fundamental to America. I cannot believe I have to type those words. America is on the brink of martial law. But the scary part's not the martial law aspect. The scary part is who's going to throw the first stone. So he says states cannot invade each other, not as a legal thing. He's saying states cannot invade each other as a warning. As in the moment that Texas sends its people into there, what are you going to have? You're going to have, and this is something that I said a long time ago too, but as it pertains to Jeff Younger, right? What would happen if, say, Texas sent its, let's look at the Jeff Younger situation. What happens if they rule in Texas, they go, you know what, Jeff, we messed up. We actually should have made sure that your wife did not leave the state with your children. So you know what? We're going to make it up for you. We're going to extradite her from California. We're going to get her and the kid, both the sons, we're going to bring them back. Well, then what happens if California says, no, you're not? Well, in fact, what's happening is that was said by California legislature, and what was said by the Texas judicial legislature isn't going to be the people communicating at the border. People communicating at the border are going to be some of the people from the National Guard or the U.S. Marshals that were sent by Texas to go pick them up. And the people they're going to be talking to will probably be the local police after, Jeff Younger's wife calls the police and says, hey, they're trying to take me from my home. So that's who has the conversation. It's not the politicians. It will be between the police guys who probably have no idea what the hell's going on. So then take it to this situation. So they're probably more than likely going to get the order. And that's this hypothetical. This scenario, the National Guard will probably know exactly what they're being sent in for. So they're going to get the call, and they're going in because they have to help ICE clear the Chicago area of its de-ICE zones, whatever they're calling, anti-ICE zones. And so what's going to happen? The Texas National Guard will roll up, and they are going to be opposing the orders of Brandon Johnson's Chicago police. And so obviously this paints a very, very poor scenario because what are people going to do? And if you've come to understand anything, it's that the majority of anybody in uniform will just do whatever they are told. I was just following orders. So what happens when you have two headless bodies meeting each other? You're going to have very, very, very bad optics for one. You're going to have two different suits of uniform, both of similar colors, opposing each other and arguing at the wall. And this is going to put people's personal politics up to the test. It really will. It will be a matter of who is in those lines, who agrees with what's being done, who's disagreeing with what's being done. But that is what it looks like right now. So the hope here would be that Brandon Johnson would basically step down. He would willingly walk away. He would willingly tell his guys to stand down. I'm also of the belief that I don't think the Chicago police would. I think you would see a very movie-like, maybe Hollywood scenario almost, where I would imagine there would be people who would say, like, I'm not doing this. They just would quit. Or maybe they would be privy to what's happening and they'd walk away. But sure, there'd still be probably enough people who'd want a paycheck. And maybe they just don't care. They don't care what happens. They're only going to listen to the person paying them. So it's pointing and looking like it's going to get really, really bad, especially there in Chicago. But the tweet, and the tweet that Gavin Newsom's highlighting of, and the reason why he's concerned is because of this, Greg Abbott from 19 hours ago. I fully authorized the president to call up 400 members of the Texas National Guard to ensure safety for federal officials. You can either fully enforce protection for federal employees or get out of the way and let Texas Guard do it. No guard can match the Texas National Guard's good, yada, yada. And so then there you have J.B. Pritzker, who is irritated at that. But where do we go from here? And I think that is the question. Where do we go from here? And that's one thing that I've been thinking about, because obviously we are fresh off of the, what would you call it? That honeymoon period of, hate to call it that on such a dark thing, but that kind of 2-week to 3-week period that basically everybody was willing to say, well, let's play nice. Hold on a little bit. Let's take a breath. And that moment was the assassination of Charlie Kirk. When everybody decided to go, hold on, wait a second. Maybe things are getting a little too much. Well, and just like that, in a matter of 2 weeks, we are right back to exactly what we were doing, more of the same. And that's what I feared would have been the worst outcome. Would have been that no one would have gotten and taken from the event, the tragedy that they should have gotten from it, which was, if we don't find the off-ramp immediately, fast, and almost force people on the off-ramp, there will be no off-ramp in the future. And I'm quite honestly of the belief that I think we are well past the off-ramp. I think the off-ramp maybe even was gone 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. I mean, that's a philosophical question for another day. But the point being, and, I do kind of agree with people like, Jeff Younger and others who say, it's not a matter of can we get the plane to not crash? It's a matter of which side of the plane should you be on for the best chance to survive when it does crash. And I think that's kind of more of the conversation that needs to be had now. Now, additionally, the reason why this story is in such a crazy light is because it's paired with the story from Jay Jones. And the reason why it's paired with the story from Jay Jones is because they're very, very, very similar. They are both in lockstep with the conditions required for some kind of civil conflict. And so from there, well, one of the first measures you would need to have civil conflict, which you would need to be exactly what is happening, a very, very extremely weak federal government and a bunch of willing and allowed smaller state governments, such as what's happening with Brandon Johnson, going a little bit further, seeing how far they can kind of push, like how different can I be? What can I get away with by denying ICE over here? How can I make things a bit harder? Well, then the second thing, and probably what I would argue is a bit more important, would be you would need the actual consent of the people, the consent of the governed. And that can look a bunch of different ways. But in the case of civil war, it's more so that it would need to be not less so the consent of the people, but more so that the people would be willing and they would see a reason and they would understand why it would be happening. And then you would get to factions. Thus begins the balkanization, the identitarian aspect, the who are my people, who's we. And if you've been paying attention to some of the last streams we've been going on, there has been a lot of conversation about who is we, the who is we aspect of the conversation, the friend-enemy distinction. Where do we draw the line? How much is too much compromise? Where do you say you're not one of my guys? You're one of my guys. You're not one of my guys. But you would need the consent of the people. You would need the people to see why and what was happening and go, okay, I understand. This is why it's necessary. And I think we already have that. And I think we have that and what you can see from the reaction from the left in regards to the J. Jones story. So what is the J. Jones story? Let's move on to there, because I'm sure everybody else on the planet will be covering Brandon Johnson. So the J. Jones story is he's a Democrat candidate. He's a Democrat candidate for the Attorney General of Virginia. And what is the Attorney General of Virginia? Well, the Attorney General, also called the top cop. So what does that mean? You are the Attorney General of Virginia. It would mean you are the top cop. You are the top lawyer. You are the top prosecutor of that state. And you have a few other duties in there too tied together, but that's kind of the representation. You're the top cop. So it turns out, and this was revealed over the weekend, I believe October 3rd or 4th was the first day that we got some of this published. And I believe it's from the National Review is who the opening publication was, who had got the story out. But it's as simple as this. You have J. Jones, this Democrat candidate, was publicly and over the phone and over text exchange, fantasizing and trying to convince to another colleague of theirs why he was fantasizing about shooting his GOP rival, House Speaker Todd Gilbert. Now, I'd explained a little bit previously, but we're going to start from the beginning. And so as it's explained by the National Review, and there are some aspects of this story that you have to say allegedly and was reported by, because not everything can you confirm just through text messages. But the story basically boils down to being this. It happened in August of 2022. We didn't find out about it until 2025. He had initially meant to message someone that he didn't message. And so all we know is that this person was supposedly Mark. But that didn't stop him, even after he realized he'd messaged the wrong person. The person he was texting was Republican House Delegate Kerry Coyner. I believe that's how you say it. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's how you pronounce it. Kerry Coyner, Republican House Delegate. And that's who he was texting. And the reason why he's texting her is because it pissed him off that during the eulogy for Joe Johnson, another Democrat delegate there in Virginia who had passed away at the ripe age of 90 years old and had served for nearly 3 decades, he was angry because J. Jones viewed Joe Johnson as a centrist. And so when the Republicans began eulogizing him in a very, very, in a nice way and in a very kind way, it pissed him off. It angered him. And on 2 fronts. On the first front, it angered him because he saw Joe Johnson as basically one of them. Because Joe Johnson was so centrist, he might as well have been a Republican. And the second element, and the one that bothered him a bit more beyond that, was he just has it out for Mr. Todd Gilbert. He strongly has strong disdain for Mr. Todd Gilbert. And so the conversation takes a very, 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 very dark turn. So let me get the text of him actually up on screen here. Let me find them here. Let me get the text here. So we'll cover a couple of these videos of him, but this is some of the text exchange. So I'll put this and make this a bit bigger so you guys can see this. So this is the worst part of the text exchange. What is missing from here is actually one slide before this, which is him opening the conversation with Kerry, where he does say, oops, sorry, that was for Mark. And he does mention along the lines of here too. What does he say beyond there? Basically that he says, I wonder what those pieces of shit would say about me if I died. But here's where it takes the dark turn. And you can see it here. And Kerry Coyner responds, they say nice things about everybody. Basically trying to, an attempt to calm him down a little bit about him raging out over the words being spoken over a guy who just passed away. That's what he says. He says, if those guys die before me, I will go to their graves to piss on their graves. Send them out awash in something. Kerry Coyner basically responds, J. Jones, almost like a pearl clutching, like, whoa. And so what does he say? He says 3 people, 2 bullets. Gilbert, Hitler, and Pol Pot. He says, Gilbert gets 2 bullets to the head. Spoiler, put Gilbert in the crew with the 2 worst people and he receives both bullets every time. the tried and true hypothetical of, putting Hitler and some other dictator in a room and then saying that you would hurt the random person from 2025. It's a statement meant to sway somebody about the evil character of the individual. To which Kerry Coyner says, Jay, please stop. And then he says, LOL, okay. It really bothers me when you talk about hurting people or wishing death upon them. So, this is the first break here. And it's kind of hard to make up when you're just seeing all these tweets here. But again, I cover this front to back. So what you'll see is there's this first break here in text. This is the end of this first exchange on the left-hand side before we get to the one here on the right-hand side. It's after this exchange that allegedly what we have from Miss Kerry Coyner is that she gets called by Jay Jones. And it's in this call that basically Jay Jones is really trying to persuade her. And it's because Jay Jones had picked up on the fact that Mrs. Kerry Coyner had been alarmed at some of the language that he was using, and for good reason. So he gets alarmed by this, or she gets alarmed by this, and he can tell by the emotions that she's saying in there. But we got to kind of take her word for that, and that'll be more of a story for the video for tomorrow. But to explain more succinctly, he basically has a phone call. He's desperate. And he's desperate because I think that he got the whiff that she was not about what he was selling. She was not picking up what he was putting down. And it's in that he's kind of getting a bit frenzy, and he's trying to convince her of why he feels this way. And so she hangs the phone up in disgust because multiple things are mentioned there. And of those multiple things, what was mentioned was, beyond pissing on the graves, beyond the hypothetical scenario with Hitler and and Pol Pot, he also talks about, and this isn't in the text messages, but Kerry Coyner says this to the National Review, and she has a couple of statements that you can find on the National Review. She says that in this phone call, he's trying to convey to her the point that if he was able to get Gilbert's wife to watch their children die, it would get Gilbert to change his mind. No joke. And he's trying to convince her of this. He's trying to convince her that this is how policy happens. So to go back to the messages, there's a few other things that gets exchanged in there, but the point being is that Kerry hangs up in disgust. She's like, no more. So that he doesn't stop there. It does not stop him. He comes back and she says, you weren't simply asking questions and you know it. He says, I genuinely was. I wasn't attacking you. I was trying to understand your logic. She says, you weren't trying to understand. You were talking about hoping Jennifer Gilbert's children would die. And he says, yes, I've told you this before. Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy. So doubling down after their phone call. So again, this message exchange here on the right-hand side is after she's already hung up the phone and he's continuing to try to get his point across. So then there's a bit more to be said here. And again, I'll save some of this for the video for tomorrow because it gets a bit deeper than what I'm going through here. And so there's a breakup again in the messages. So we don't know what directly happens from there. But the next screenshot we get from her is she goes, there isn't. I point blank asked you more than 3 times and you dug in that you meant it. I honestly am questioning a lot today. And then the final thing we have from this exchange here is, I mean, do I think Todd and Jennifer are evil and that they're breeding little fascists? Yes. The mask comes completely off. And so what do we get from that? Well, we get exactly what you would expect. We get almost 0 calls from condemnation, condemning what he said. Now we do get Abigail Spanberger, who is running for governor of Virginia simultaneously, because also Jay Jones is running for AG. She says that I condemn the language, but doesn't call for him to step down. This is the running theme of the left and many people in this kind of space. Abigail Spanberger being the one to point the finger out the most, seeing how she has repeatedly promoted and endorsed Jay Jones. The most that she could come up with is saying, well, I don't like violent rhetoric. End quote. Now, obviously, she said a bit more to that, but to the effect of the fact she did not call for him to step down. She did not call for him to walk away from the race. Almost none of them are. The only people that are calling for that are Republicans. And that's telling. It's telling because, I mean, can you imagine if Donald Trump said anything even close to this? The world would explode. It would just it would just instantly, I wouldn't even know what happened. It would just disappear. And I think that is indicative because I think that's how a lot of Democrats feel and think. And that's kind of the main gist of what I'm trying to get across here. I don't think that Jay Jones is an outlier. I think he is actually very representative of the people across the aisle from us. And I think that the reason why they can't bring themselves to say something so easy, which would be, hey, you have lost the moral card and the moral high ground. You cannot be top cop in the state of Virginia when this kind of shit's coming out of your mouth. I don't care if it was 3 years ago. Now, even better, why don't we take a look at what his response was? Let's take a look at what his response was here. I'm not even joking. You can't make this up. You just can't make this up. And it is funny. Somebody comes in the chat and they go, Candace is vindicated. And then he goes, watch our show today. She brought receipts, assuming they're real. Dude, you guys crack me up. But here's what he says from this random account. This was his response. Here is a statement from Jay Jones in response to this story. He goes, look at this. Like all people, I've sent text message. Like, no. Let's stop it right there. This isn't a like all people. This isn't like a, I butt dialed you like all people. This isn't a, I said something, a little off the hook. This isn't. No, this was a clear and concerted effort of you trying to, for one, he gets caught and I think he doubles down, doesn't know what to do with the alarmed reaction of Carrie Coyner. And so he calls her, he's like, no, political violence is necessary. Come on, you believe that, right? And she's just like, please stop calling me. This is white only. No, she didn't say that, but she's like, beep. And then he spams her with more messages and she's like, holy crap. And what I would say too, on the other part that doesn't make sense about this story at all is allegedly again, and reportedly, Harry says that she sent the text messages to Gilbert that day, back on August 8th, 2022. But what doesn't make sense is, why are we only finding out about it now? So you could make the argument, maybe she lied and she never sent the screenshots to Gilbert, or did Gilbert see those screenshots in 2022 and go, it's more of the same, oh well, and went on? Because I'm more of the mindset that's it. I'm more of the mindset that we have become so desensitized to the amount of actual rhetoric that's going on in this country that it's only because Charlie Kirk was assassinated a few weeks ago that now we're looking at things in a different light. Thus, that's probably the reason why Gilbert didn't even post it, because he was like, everybody in the Republican space is getting these messages. I'm not anybody special. This is how everybody talks about Republicans. I'm nobody special. And it's only now that we look at the fact that the left is clearly willing to act on these ideals, do we now look at these new ones in a different light? We look at this in a different light. And so his response is this: like all people, I've sent text messages that I regret. Dude, this is way beyond the, I sent a risky message. This is way beyond the I was angry and said something rude and mean that I didn't actually mean. This is a full blown, you mean this. You're just sorry that you got caught. So he continues. He goes, like all people, I've sent text messages that I regret. And I believe that violent rhetoric has no place in our politics. Let's be clear about what this is happening in the Attorney General race right now. Jason Mayares is dropping smears through Trump-controlled media organizations to assault my character and rescue his desperate campaign. This is a strategy that ensures Jason Mayares will continue to be, and it's exactly as Carl Johansson's putting it, way to both sides it. It blame shifts, it's deflective. And what you can find here, I see Trump, 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 Trump. What do you not see? Tell me what you don't see. I'll give it a second. What you don't see is an apology to Mr. Todd Gilbert. What you don't see is an apology to Kerry Coyner for putting her in this position. What you don't see is an apology to Gilbert's wife. What you don't see is an apology to his children. And it cannot be understated. There's a racial component to this. Jay Jones is black or light-skinned or whatever you want to say it. He's not white. Todd Gilbert is white. His family is white. His wife is white. Go back to the Chicago mayor, Brandon Johnson. Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson is what? He's not white. So here we are once again, following down the lines of this, we go, there is a racial component to it. And that has to be said. And because even if you wanted to make up these other nuanced arguments, which I would listen to, I'm open-minded to, you can't get around the fact that the Democratic Party is the monolith for blacks. Right? Like it's a victory for Republicans if we get over 13% of the black candidate. Like, what is it, the figure? It's like, I think if Republicans get if they get something beyond 13% of the black vote, it's like a guaranteed win for Republicans. That's insane. Which, again, none of you needed to be told this, I would imagine, from most people here in the audience. But it has to be said in the aspect of, with civil war rising, what hinges on a lot of these things is race. What is a lot of what the left pushes that the right's not buying? It's on elements of race. But then you can go down the line, and there's trans stuff in there too, but I think the trans stuff's kind of losing a bit of its merit and its weight here in the political conversation. But again, there is a racial component, and you say you could be, and that's the thing is, we have to just be honest, right? There's no more like, don't make it about race. No, there's a huge racial component to it. And we have to talk about it. Can't be in this position of never talking about it or acting like it has nothing to do with the conversation or acting like it has. And let's be honest, what is the reason why ICE is being looked at by the average left winger for why ICE shouldn't even be allowed in Chicago? Well, it's because it's those racist ICE policies. It's those racist Trump policies. Mass deportations are what? They're racist. They're fascist. It all hinges on this. It all has an element of race. It is an element of, being held back because you don't, and for the administration side, being held back because you don't want the New York Times to be able to run something on the runway and go, Trump administration does something racist. It's a sad optics battle that I wish we didn't hold ourselves to. But I mean, I not even say our. I am no fan of the Trump administration by any means. And that's the reason why it matters. And I think the biggest takeaway that I had from this was not that Jay Jones needs condemned and all that. I think that's obvious. He needs condemned. I think it is a travesty if Jay Jones does not walk away from the campaign. I think it would be even more insane to think that this guy could potentially win in an upcoming election. I think the most takeawayable part, the part that for the viewers at home, what do you guys need to remember, right? Write this down. You got a pen and paper? Write this down. Jay Jones is the typical Democrat. He's not some outlier. He is not some random creation from a lab that's nothing. He's not the black sheep of the family. Jay Jones is the typical Democrat. And that is why Abigail Spanberger is refusing to tell him to walk away from the race, is because she believes what he said in those messages. She just can't say that right now. Or maybe for a couple of years. She can't say that because it would also threaten her governor race too. And that's kind of where we have it. Why are the Democrats not calling for Jay Jones to step down from the race? Now, there was one who was on Fox, and she was a former Biden staffer, but former Biden also means you're not even in the game anymore. So whose feet to the fire is she being held to? So there's one Democrat that I literally heard verbatim say that he should drop out of the race, but that's where it ends. It starts and ends with one former Biden official who was on Fox News the other day. So make from that what you will. that is the story of Jay Jones. Like I said, I'm going to cover it in more comprehensive detail with a video tomorrow. I scripted it earlier today leading into the show. As I was show prepping, I was going back and forth. So I scripted that out to cover too. And so I'm probably missing and forgetting about some of the smaller pieces that kind of rope everything all in together. But that's the biggest takeaway from me, in my perspective, is that I do think that Jay Jones actually is representative of the average Democrat. And so if he's representative of the average Democrat, let's go back to Civil War. That thing needed to be from where the left would be, well, for the left to be willing to go to civil war, they would be needing a reason. What is their casus belli, right? What is the reason for war? Their motive to willingly do things that could ultimately be very, very consequential to their lives and their lives of their loved ones. What would be that they actually believe in the moral and holy righteous cause of what Jay Jones is behind, which can, for more or less, be all wrapped together into what would you call the woke mind virus, or just woke in general, which is largely all based around a Marxist framing of a bunch of DEI, and race, and oppressor and oppressed, and we can see this time and time again. And so it matters if the belief is the average Democrat does look at Gilbert. We've seen this time and time again, right? Sydney Sweeney ad, "I've got good genes." Everyone's running to Twitter. Look at this Nazi dog whistle. It's an attractive blonde woman saying, "I have good genes." That really that's a Nazi dog whistle. And so, and then you look at the photo, and I think I might have the photo. Let me put it on screen here. Let's take a look. What does Gilbert's kids look like, right? He's breeding little fascists. What do Gilbert's kids look like? These are the little fascists. And apologies, I don't really wish I was putting their faces on screen, but it's got to be said. Jay Jones sees, and think about it. So even 3 years, probably even before where this photo was, so they're probably even younger than that. Jay Jones sees toddler white boys and goes, "They're breeding fascists, and they're evil." And we know what road that goes down. We know where it goes. It goes right into the justification of why people should be eliminated, or why they should be dehumanized, or why they should lose rights, why they shouldn't have why they should just be dead. To be honest with you, it's not even about rights or a systematic anything. They just want you to die. The average Democrat, that is to be frank, that's like the beginning and end of their politics. And more frankly, they probably would just want you to suffer. As Sam Hyde puts it quite often, they probably more often they want you to suffer. They want you to be like them. And it's sad, but this is the direction we're going, right? And so nothing ever happens until it does. And then when it does, it happens slowly, then suddenly. And so as much as I'm rooting for the nothing ever happens guys to win, well, if nothing ever happens, that it means one of two things. Either one, we fought back successfully and peacefully, so nothing ever did happen, or two, nothing ever happened in the light that I think it's going to happen, which is white men continually just sat there and fucking took it until there was not enough of us to take it anymore, and then we all just perished. And that seems to be the direction that we're on. So I think the real call here is Donald Trump. If Virginia doesn't get this handled inside of its state, that someone's got to come in and get this guy out. Like there's, and imagine that, right? Imagine I'm just happen to be passing through Virginia, right? And I get pulled over on some BS by this guy and one of his cronies. I mean, like, I don't think that's legitimate. And let's be honest, like, let's just be honest with ourselves. Like, would you take orders from this guy? Right? Imagine if this was in your state. Say this guy wins this election and it's in your state, and he passes some decree. Are you going to follow it? Or he has some meaningful change, right? Or and that's not to say it's Jay Jones in particular. Let's just apply Jay Jones as a person if he is the average Democrat. And let's say somebody like Jay Jones becomes president. Or let's say somebody like Jay Jones becomes governor somebody like Jay Jones, and there already are some of them that are like that. We know this. It's not like we're waiting for them to come. They're already here. They're already in power. They're just not. They do a pretty good job at hiding it. Well, I'm going to be honest with you, and don't take this as advice. I'm just somebody who's very convicted. I'm not going to be ruled by people that hate me. So forgive me, but I will not take orders from. I will not do things at the behest of. I will not honor the wishes of any person who hates me, any person who views me as such and wants to rule over me. I'm sorry. That is not the way this works. And therein lies the bigger problem, which is we have irreconcilable differences between the groups. And I don't see it going away. I think Charlie Kirk's death was a sign that the attempts at persuasion should probably be dialed back because they're not nearly as effective. And that's not to say like he doesn't probably win the hearts and minds of every few people that might have an inner monologue. There's still a few out there. I think there's like 10 of us left. But like, somebody may possibly have an inner monologue and maybe, on the ends of taking them to Christ and showing them who Jesus is and showing them the way of what conservative values and ideals are is still a good thing, yes. But I think as a whole, there is a core to the left that is not changing, that has heard all of the arguments before, that knows everything about Jesus Christ there is to know, and still says, no, I reject him, I reject you, I reject all of it. And to what end can you have a union with that kind of ideology? I would say that you can't. And I don't think you can at all. So the question from there is, how long can this survive then in this stasis? And like I had said the other day, this stasis is only allowed to us or afforded to us, again, because of the predominant Christian values and ethics, and because of the overwhelming tolerance from white men in general, just taking it over and over and over, day in and day out. Because if that wasn't there, can you imagine if white people had the same in-group bias as blacks did? There would be no question of what would have happened and how long ago it would have happened, because it would have happened very quickly and it wouldn't have been fun. Well, it would have been fun now. I wouldn't have had to deal with these things, but just not fun in the sense of how quickly they would have gotten taken care of and they would have acted on it because they had the power to do so. I just don't have a good feeling for what's to come. And I think a lot of people have had that feeling too. Obviously, I think the Charlie Kirk thing kind of really drove the nail in the coffin, which was, it feels like something big is around the corner. It feels like something is about to happen. Now, I'm not going to throw it out there in this hokey pokey kind of way, but I do see it in the sense of, and I'll go to with what Nick had said the other day, right? In reference to Nick Fuentes and his agreement with Curtis Yarvin, which is, that's something for another day, which is the idea, though, that basically the Trump administration is setting us up for, if the left comes back into power, we are going to get annihilated across the board. If they come back into power, it's I don't know if the right's ever going to have a chance again. The way that they lie, cheat, and steal, and corrupt. So that's not to say the Republicans are any better at all. It's just to say we know what the left will do. They are the party of action. The Republicans are the party of wait, hold on, slow down. Behind on every social value at 25 years. Okay, I guess we'll let the gays come in. Oh, I guess the gays are okay. But I do think if the Democrats get into power for any meaningful amount of time, especially if they get 2 terms, they pull 2 terms off in a row, it's so over. And I think a lot of this goes back into the bottle. And I think you would see a lot of the gains that we have made today would be lost. You would lose a lot of the prime from the culture warriors who have made it to where they are today. I think the censorship goes right back into effect on YouTube, and it goes right back to square one. And then it goes back to, what say you, right? Like, what say you? do you think then again that the American populace, the average white man, would once again follow this long-term track of putting our guys in place only to have another administration just piss it away, just fumble at every waking turn, spending the majority of their time just getting shamed and humiliated by a foreign prime minister, Benjamin Netanyahu? It wouldn't happen again. People aren't going back to that. And that's to say too, because the MAGA's already been annihilated. Half of the people have left. A good portion of them just said, I don't care about politics. Another portion of them said, I guess I'll be libertarian. And the other half of them said, Nick Fuentes, 2032 or whatever it is. It's just not looking good. But that's kind of where we're at with Civil War aspect. I just, we need off ramps. We need ways for this to not be like this anymore. Because I'm going to just be honest, there's, maybe that's the stasis, right? Maybe we do find a perfect stasis, and maybe that perfect stasis is for every one black man who ever gets injured and gets a news story about him, there needs to be 100 whites, and maybe that's just what it is. It seems to me the more and more I do talk to people in this space and I see engagement and stuff, maybe that's our natural role in life. We're just gonna be the global minority, and we'll just sit and fucking take it until the end of time. And every father and mother in my generation and of my ethnicity can just hold it and just have faith and take peace and heart in knowing they did literally absolutely fucking nothing, and they turned it over for their children and their children and their children to their children and their children to their children until they continually passed the baton down until we were utterly stripped of all of our dignity. And then what? And then maybe fully being fucking enslaved by not only just insane amounts of Jewish influence and not only by racial cuckoldry, maybe then. But even then, I doubt it. I'm beginning to think there might be something genetically imposed upon white people that make them more likely to be bystanders. Obviously, I'm just talking out of my ass. I'm just annoyed with the lack of willpower, the lack of conviction, because it's the age of martyrs. That's what this is. It's any guy who's willing to put themselves out there and fight and have conviction and put it on a piece of paper with their name attached to it. We're gonna start. It's gonna be whack-a-mole. Bop, gone. Bop, gone. Bop, gone. Censored. You've been censored. Gone. Deleted. Right? I mean, and I don't even know if that's enough. I really don't. It's sad, man. I just expected more. I guess I expected better from my countrymen. And when I say countrymen, no, I don't mean blacks. I mean the guys who look like me, the guys who dress like me, the guys who talk like me, the guys who get shit talked at them like me, the guys who feel the same way as me when they see white not being capitalized, the guys that feel the same way as me when they see for the 8 millionth time another interracial ad pushing for a white woman to go fuck a black guy. I'm talking about the people who feel like that, like me. Where are you? But who knows? Maybe they're all gone already. Yeah, I'm serious. I feel Nick. Are there any real left? Right? YouTube probably gonna. Who cares? But that's how I feel, man. That is how I feel. And the most you get is Stephen Miller going, no, don't ask me dumb questions. F you. Like, oh my gosh, man. And it just makes us look worse. Maybe I make us look worse. Maybe I'm the no, I highly doubt that. And I don't think that we're alone. I just think we are in the vast minority. So, and I do think that holds, which is this fight is not over. The Nick Fuentes versus Charlie Kirk just opens its chapter 4, which is it's Nick Fuentes versus the core conservative versus the average conservative. So, not to do too much on a rant, not to be angry and yell at the camera and in in my safe space here at home. Let's go to one of these one-offs here, because I do think that this story does deserve a bit of coverage. And this is the fact that there was a father who had ripped this school district for them having a secret sex club. And the reason I wanted to highlight this in the same light as Civil War, and I know it's a bit different, and yeah, I stand with Nick too. And hard segue, by the way. The reason why I wanted to bring it up in light with the Civil War aspect is because this is also another trend that I've been watching and following along with, that it's clear it's like been getting worse with time. So like when I was in school, it was like the scandal would be like the history teacher, who's also the football coach, was texting some guys some one of the parents' wives or something. It's like, oh, it's a big scandal, right? But it's still like straight. It's like it's heterosexual, and it goes like in these lines here. So what do we get from there? But that's not what we're getting anymore. So then it started being like, it was the underage aspect. It was, band teacher is with a 24-year-old band teacher, newly hired from college, has an affair with an underage high school girl. And like, that's really bad, obviously, and that puts a lot of damage on people's records. Then, that's funny text. That's actually good. Sorry, that threw me off guard. Put them in this hand. They need to be in this hand, my talking hand. Okay. That's funny. My substitute teacher arc, I'd make a pretty good substitute teacher. But then it goes a different route. And then it actually at some point switches genders. And then what do we get? And now we're in this flurry in 2025 where it is every day. And I know you guys know this too. I know I'm not the only one seeing these New York Post articles. It is every day. It's here's a married teacher had an affair with 15-year-old boy here. Had married teacher. I'm not even joking you. The one I saw the other day was like this married teacher was asking and then locked the door in her own classroom, asking the kids in her classroom to run a train on her. If you have not accepted and acknowledged that we are at the complete tail end of our society as we know it, you better, strap in. Come on, strap in, guys. Because that is it. That is the tail end. When you have women that are so, for lack of better words, who are so neurotic, so deprived of the natural sense of what is meant to make someone happy, feel satiated, being a normal person, like having sanity, and we get what they get now. We're not even at the point of like the grass is greener on the other side. Maybe I need to go have an affair with like this guy who my husband is friends with. We're full blown like the only thing that will make me feel like me and happy. I just have to explore myself as having a bunch of sex with underage boys in my classroom. It's like, what? And then to make it worse, and then to make this story full circle, it's half these stories. The husband's like, I stayed with my wife. He's like, it's like, brother, you got cucked by a child. And he goes, I'll stay with my wife. I have my wife's back. Dude. Those are the news stories that make me want to drive my car 1,000 miles an hour into a running train. I can't. How am I a guy who does that? Me and him, entirely different species, dude. You can call him human if you want. I'm not him. Whatever guy would have that happen to him, and his response would be to walk and hold hands with his wife into the courtroom as she begins to cover through her like 54 different cases of underage, and he's holding her hand the entire time. I don't even know if that's a human being anymore. He ain't a man. I don't know what he is. Me and you are not the same. And that isn't even a duality of man thing. That is like brother, you are a sick and sad, you are a beaten down creature. But my heart does feel for them. Truly do. And that's how it goes full circle. It's the sexual degeneracy, the promiscuity went from one gender to the other. And then as that gender got worse and worse and more neurotic with it, the husbands became more and more willing, more glad, more happy, more humiliation ready. They're like, humiliate me more. It's what I want. Thus, Destiny was born. Or the Destiny archetype was born, and they've been around for a hot minute, but I that is not me. It's like human male cannot fit both me and those type of guys in the same definition. It can't. We can't. This isn't like a inferior. Well, I would say superior for sure, but definitely superior to whatever a cuck is. They need their own definition. It's like man, boy, something between there, right? Something between there. like it's just an accessory to a woman's neurotic wishes. But then we get another one of these stories. So we have another one of these stories in that same light that goes along with all of this, right? Because we're at the tail end of society. You know, if you look up the rat utopia, the beautiful ones, and you kind of look and extrapolate some of the behaviors that you were seeing from some of these rat utopia experiments, you can see a lot of the similarities here. And so in that same line of sexual degeneracy in the school and in the classrooms and largely being taken or being committed by women, we have this story here. This is from Define Els. And this is from, I believe, just a month ago or so is when this first one got published. But Define Els put the video out. It says, heartbroken father who almost lost his 12-year-old daughter to suicide exposes school district held a secret sex club and told kids not to tell their parents. There's a lot going on here, but we can just start right here. So the dad is heartbroken because he watched as his 12-year-old daughter tried to take herself out. And the 12-year-old daughter, why she's doing this is because it turns out she was involved with a secret sex club inside of the school district. And even going beyond that, this sex club made it very apparent for the kids to not tell their parents. Sue them into oblivion is not the answer for that, by the way. Making the school pay financially is just the tip of the iceberg. Hey, guess what? We got rid of the jail. But guess what? I got something better than jail. Hey, how thick is that rope? Suing, we have to get away from this. Suing doesn't help nobody. I'm honest with you. And we know the jail system is corrupt. We know it. How long will he be in there before, Amazon drones are dropping off heroin to him and and the guys who took this sex club apart? Suing them's not the answer. And matter of fact, that's actually more of the point that Harrison Smith had made, that I've been on that, which is that you sue them, that does not satiate the hunger for justice for the American people when they continually see this dog shit being shoved in their mouths. We need to see people in prison. We need to see people actually even worse than in prison. We need to see capital punishment. We need to see justice that actually meets the violations being made by one. And here's the thing. I could get some more of this lackadaisical punishment if it was like random guy who was on drugs and had a really poor life and his dad beat the shit out of him. It's like, okay. It's like that guy, maybe he had mental issues. It's like, okay, he gets a 20-year prison sentence. It's like, okay, he serves his time. All right. What we need is not that. What we need, especially because these people sit at the highest offices. It's president, it's attorney general, it's school board member, it's school board president, it's director, it's counselor, it's all of these. It's people who are put in positions of authority, who are in that authority because the expectation is they earned that job by having the credibility that they would not violate that trust. They would not violate the fact that they have authority over children. And even more so when it's in other offices, that they have authority over their constituents. If you are in those places, the same way that if a cop commits a crime, a cop deserves a harsher sentence. Period. If you take an oath to defend this country, but you're the same guy who's going to go murder somebody against the law and you know it's wrong, harsher penalty, period. And that goes for all elements like that, right? Like, I mean, seriously, think about it. Like, if you are the one who took the oath and they expected to be the protectorate of it, but you yourself are the one that violates it, what greater violation could there be? A violation from somebody who might not even know that law existed? Or the one who took the oath to protect it? So it's in those lines that anyone who's in a position of authority deserves the harshest sentence possible, period. No slaps on the wrist. No, well, we'll have to have another election. Oh, no, we'll have to. Don't care. Justice is justice. Justice is blind. And you know what? It's not in this country. Justice in this country has had 20/20 vision for way too long. Our justice sees everything. It makes every, oh, let me look at this first. Let me look at this first. No. Justice should be blind. Person committed crime? Yes. Sentence. Done. There's no extra math needed there, period. So I say that in regards to this 3-minute clip here that went viral, because you have, again, a sex club from a school district that was only found out about because a father was willing to go and open it up and rip these people apart in public. And now we have this video, and hopefully we will get some justice from it. But here's this video, and here's his father ripping into him.
In early May of 2021, my wife and I were asked by our daughter if she could attend Jenna Reap's after-school anime club at Wellington Middle School. Knowing there's a lot of inappropriate anime, we reluctantly gave our permission, trusting PSD to provide a safe, age-appropriate environment for our child. December 13th, 2021, on our bathroom floor, I sat with my child in my arms, waiting for the ambulance to arrive. She had tried to kill herself. At her request, we had pulled her from Wellington Middle School just days before. I rode with her in the back of the ambulance to the emergency room, and I sat by her side during a 72-hour hold. And the only reason they would let me do that is because she was only 12. And I watched helplessly as the ambulance pulled away to Denver so that she could get the help that she so sorely needed. Not a single PSD employee reached out to us to understand what in the PSD environment may have contributed to her decision to end her life. Not a single PSD employee. It wasn't until May of this year when Wellington Middle School made the news that we had a much better understanding of what had happened and realized that our experience was not an isolated incident. Anime Club was actually a club about gender and sex, and when we asked our daughter if she was ever told to lie to us about it, she said she was told that students didn't have to talk to anyone about what was being said in that room, and if parents asked, students didn't need to tell them. And it felt like a slap in the face to me.
And let's just start right there. We have basically now gotten a lot of these school places to, what have they done? They have adopted systematically this kind of praxis of basically making sure, placing this wedge so that parents can't get involved. And they do so under this kind of, it's very nefarious. They do so under this banner of like, well, you never really can trust the parents, can you? And it kind of like positions themselves as more of a credible authority figure than the parent themselves. We all know that not to be true, but they're taking advantage of it. And again, an emotional argument they're abusing, because we do know there are certain situations where kids might not be better off with their parents, but there are fewer and far between. Less so than how the school makes it out to be, as if every parent just has it out to get them. And so it's very, very unfortunate. But here's the rest of it.
To listen to Brian Kingsley and Kelby Benedict, the principal, through email and in person and video, that they fully support and encourage these organizations that they know bring with them a highly elevated suicide rate. When we met with Kelby, he told us, I am proud of the community that we've created in Wellington, a community that led to my daughter's decision to try and end her life. And when we shared our experience with Kelby, he told us that kids being invited to art club and anime club were just rumors, and then suggested our daughter was lying with regards to what Jenna Reap had told her about talking to parents. I would love to trust PSD, but the last time I did, the PSD environment, which you're also very proud of, nearly cost me my child's life. And you ask me to trust you again. To what end? So you can finish the job that you started?
And here's the thing. I actually agree with Mr. Carl Johansson here. And I would say it's not a brutal assessment. I would say it's an honest one. He says, my brutal assessment is if you send your kids to public school, you should expect this indoctrination. This is his fault to a large degree. Everyone knows the schools are rotten. And I'm going to tell you something else too. And you can call it harsh. You can say I'm being rude or mean. That's fine. But I have a daughter, so I guess we'll do things a bit differently. If I had found that out that was my daughter, that would probably be the last time you ever saw me as a free man in this country. I am going to do a whole lot more than just come to the school board. Actually, here's the thing. I would do this first, actually. I would do this first, so it's public. Everybody saw I had a civil side. And then I would do things that you can't say on this platform. And that's not encouragement. It's just to say that this platform has a clear and obvious bias against what is going on in this world and views any action or reasonable justice to that as being faulty or flawed. And that's also what bothers me about this. Is that all? You about lost your daughter to an indoctrination camp at school. And those are the best words you can come up with. Now, truth be told, this is just a clip, but I've not seen any more from that. And I would expect a lot harsher energy. And we once again come full circle, which is, what's the most noticeable thing about this father? The most noticeable thing about the father is that he looks like he's almost a child himself. So all of these issues, they lead into each other, whether it's masculinity or whether it's whether it's cultural, whether it's a lack of Christianity. It's like you can find, yeah, he's effeminate, correct, and you can find that they keep attaching to themselves. So you can't get in this one track mind of what you need to improve. It's all comprehensive. Everything must go. Everything must go. And that's kind of what puts me back into a bit more of the accelerationist mindset, which I don't think that we're going to be able to. We're not going to vote ourselves out of this. We're not going to legislate ourselves out of this. Like, this is going to have to take a completely different path. I just don't think it's going to work that way. Villanova said, I don't understand though. He said that they would talk about sex there. Were they performing acts too? So from what I understand is, no, I don't believe that they were performing acts there. From what I understand is that the child was extremely embarrassed. And it was from the embarrassment of, and the lack of ability to speak with her father that sent her down a pretty rough spiral. But again, being indoctrinated by the sex club. I guess you could say abuse in terms of like psychological or emotional, in the way that now this is a very uncomfortable thing being pushed upon. But I guess at the end of the day, you would go, why? There shouldn't be sex clubs in school, and two, there shouldn't be secret sex clubs in school. And I think from there you could go into a myriad of the reasons of what teacher even signs himself up for an extracurricular activity like that, right? That's again then a whole other question, which goes to the character of some of these people. And and I know it's a pretty dark thing to bring up. I bring it up in the light of the fact that it is obvious that if you look at same way that I was saying how with Donald Trump, right? It's trust the plan on every element. It's trust the plan with what we're doing with Iran. It's trust the plan with our deportations. It's trust the plan with don't worry, the arrests are coming. We'll definitely get the left. It's trust the plan on every element. Every single one of those elements is trust the plan. And in that same light, you can see as in categorically every element of life is just it's falling off. Harsh fall off, harsh fall off. And I say that in terms of, we have Mayor Brandon Johnson saying he thinks the right wants a rematch of the Civil War. But he's saying that because he knows it provokes on the racial lines. He knows that. What does the ICE zones have to do with the Civil War? The only thing that you could even begin to, and then again, that's a look into the cortex of, you know, of how the left thinks, feels, and believes, their belief system being this like amalgamate, just ever-changing belief of new thing. The belief of today's thing is, and that's their belief system. And I just say that because I don't think that nothing is going to happen. I say that because I do think that we are on a path of something will happen. And I am very fearful that that will happen might be in the light that we don't want it to be, which is just one Republican guy doing something. And because he voted for Trump in 2024, that they'll forever paint that as like, look how violent Republicans are. And all it will take is this one instance, and everyone will forget about the every and daily, almost hourly occurrences of left-wing violence. And whether that's just by nature of them being soft on crime and letting black people do whatever the fuck they want in this country, or whether it is actually being pushed by, whether it's in the Soros Open Society Foundation, it's whether it's because they were the person who dropped the pallet of bricks off outside of the Wendy's and the clothing store. And we'll just get browbeaten with it because it's the way the media works. And because there's clearly no level of hunger from the people who are not even just in the administration, but the people who are just underneath the administration. Where is the hunger for not wanting to live like this? It's just not there. And it will continue to not just be there as long as you have figures like Matt Walsh going all the way and then stopping right before where they need to. Can't have that, man. Can't have our truth tellers being beholden to Israel and afraid to call out race realism. Just can't have it like that. And that's why you have guys like me and Zeb and John Ward and Outside the Overton and Josh Vandernoord, because we have to compete with these people. It just can't. I can't have it no more. If you want to have your gay, just we take everything and bend over for Israel and we just never talk about the elephant in the room, that's fine. But we're going to compete with you. And if we can, we'll see how long your ideas hold up, right? Until ours start to get into fruition. But that's unless YouTube nukes everybody and all of us and we just disappear and it was all flash in the pan. And you know what? maybe it's better served if we just let ourselves be enslaved. Less violence that way. Who knows? No, obviously we don't want that. I don't want that at all for anybody. But that kind of reaches the end for me today. I did have another announcement. I did break 17,000 on YouTube. That was awesome. Thank you guys. I appreciate you greatly. But I want to get back to work. I'm going to start recording for the Jay Jones video to get that out for tomorrow. I am going to try to do a lot more of daily occurrences. Daily streams. I would like to be a lot of these daily streams. That way you can do Monday through Friday, even if it is a bit shorter, like today, it's not going to hit 2 hours, but try to have a daily show at that. And I appreciate all of you guys. And do the best I can to carry it as far as I can until YouTube says it wants to censor me and it doesn't believe in free speech. And even then, I'll probably keep going. But at this point, it looks like money's flowing from Israel into every single one of these platforms. So who knows? Maybe you'll have to find me on my own street corner yelling to myself with a microphone. And with that, it's been a pleasure. I appreciate you guys. Christ is king. Pam Bondi needs to find a kitchen. Kash Patel needs deported to the moon at this point. I don't even know if India would claim him. And guys, hopefully one day we can save this country. But the point stands. Yeah, definitely like the stream. Smash the like button if you've not already. Subscribe if you've not already. Take care of your families. Be the men that God called you to be. Make sure, and I mean this wholeheartedly, do not lie to yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Be unkillable. Be the polymaths. Be the people that we need to be. Be the people that we want to be representing us. Be those men. If you can't find those men, if you're desperately searching for them somewhere, be those men. Be the person that you need to have in this country. So I think that's the only option we got left. And with that, you guys have a good rest of your night. I will catch you tomorrow. Peace out.
Get up and get out. Get out. Get out.
I have a question for you.
Say Christ is Lord. Say Christ is Lord. Say it. You say Christ is Lord. Get out. Get out.